Hi there, my name is Danielle, and I'm going to be documenting my gastric balloon venture. I'm 35 years old and I live in Northwest Washington. And I chose Obalon because with placement, you don't have to be under anesthesia. You do for removal, but not for the initial placement. You do have to swallow a fairly large capsule, and they tested me on that, but I did fine. I wasn't too worried about it. So the capsule is like, I don't know, like an inch long, and it's pretty wide too, like maybe just under half an inch. It's pretty, like, think of those gigantic antibiotic we call horse pills because they're so big. It was a little bit bigger than that, but I don't have a problem with swallowing large pills, so I had no problem with that one. I'm not entirely sure how because it has like a small, very teeny tiny little tube that comes out of it, which is what they use to fill it with gas. I'm not entirely sure how I'll go with that part because they don't have you test that part. But I'm not super worried about it. With Obalon, you have to do 3 of those, though. So September 20th, 2018 is my first balloon placement, and which is only like 4 days away. I chose Obalon because, you don't have that anesthesia, which I already said, and then the downtime is really, really low. I start nursing classes again in a week, and so I need like 0 downtime if at all possible, especially when I get the next couple of balloons, because I go full bore with nursing school until like Christmas. Another thing that I was worried about was the nausea and throwing up that I've read a lot about with other people's gastric balloons, and the nausea vomiting is supposed to be pretty low with this one. Um, like the first day you do clear liquids, and then the second day you do really soft pureed foods like yogurt or applesauce, and then the third day you're already okay with introducing soft foods, but like ground meat and things that I would be surprised that you'd already be eating on day 3. They also want you to drink a ton of water. They said that when you don't drink enough water, the balloons go lower in your stomach, and that can trigger the nausea and vomiting and also some stomach cramps. So I'm going to be pushing for a lot of water in my daily day. They also don't want you to have caffeine, so I've spent the last week weaning myself off of caffeine, which is so hard. But I really want this to be successful as possible, so I'm going to do the hard stuff. uh, so I had my consultation, and the first thing I did was met with one of the doctors there just to talk about why I was doing it, how much research I had done. I joined a Facebook group for gastric balloons, so I had that I've kind of been going through people's experiences. Unfortunately, I found that people usually only talk if their experience was super bad. So I'm kind of like taking that all into consideration, that there's probably plenty of like great stories too. And the other thing I did was they actually there was a video of the process. I watched some YouTube videos of people taking the Obalon balloon placement capsule, and I also read the medical report that was done on it, like the medical study. And so I just really wanted to be, as a nursing student, I really wanted that whole background on what the results were of that. And in general, they were pretty positive. So I definitely feel like this is the best choice for me, for sure. Um, so going back, I talked with a surgeon as well, just briefly. And then they had me see a nutritionist that day. as well as I had to do a blood, like a finger prick, like you might do for a diabetes testing, but it was for something called E. pylori, which is like a bacteria that lives in your stomach. Not everyone, but it can cause complications if you're doing a gastric balloon. So I tested negative for that, so it was a-okay. And then you also, I had to swallow some barium while there was an X-ray kind of pointed at my stomach to see whether or not there was like a hernia at the top of it. They said sometimes people have this kind of little herniated area, which can make the balloon placement difficult. So I was fine for that. I actually enjoyed it because I got to watch the barium like go down my esophagus and into my stomach, because they point it, you get to see the whole thing. So I was like, cool. And the stuff did not taste bad. It was decent, and it was like, it took 1 minute. It was nothing big at all. There are a few other things I'm going to do called a bod pod the morning of. I couldn't do it. And like a breath test that tests how much calories you burn by your breath, but you can't have taken coffee like that day that you could do that. And of course I had coffee, so I wasn't able to do that. The bod pod I'm going to be doing the day of my placement, so I don't have the total experience about that yet. I also had to do like some blood work. I did a little extra than they suggested because I did what the surgeon wanted, which is kind of like cholesterol levels, and then I was talking with my nutritionist, and so we did some vitamin levels because I really wanted to be sure that we knew what my baseline was. So that was like 4 vials of blood, but that was on me. I agreed to that. And the nutritionist, I totally suggest if you're meeting with a nutritionist, keep it as real as possible. I was very honest about a lot of things, like reasons why I think I'm overweight, the reasons why, I overeat. I was upfront about what I had the day before. I had 3 pieces of toast with butter on it the day before I came in. So I tried to normally I'd be like, oh, I had 1 or 2. I was like, no, I had 3. There's 3. And I had to stop myself because I really wanted 4. But I think honesty, especially in a medical situation, is number 1, like the most important thing, because people can't help you through the process, and they can't give you what you need and keep you as safe as possible unless you're really transparent about things. Working with different patients, when people aren't upfront, it can really, create like a barrier in between success. And so I wanted to be really open with the nutritionist. And she thanked me for that too. She's like, thank you for being so honest. So I kind of maybe used her as my psychiatrist for a little minute, but she was totally okay with that. And then I'll meet with her again before the next balloon placement, and then the 3rd balloon placement, and then I get her services for an entire year. So the balloon's only for 6 months, but I will continue to be in contact with her for a full year. So I'm happy about that, for some support after the balloon is removed. I've been prepping also for the diet. Like I said, you can't have caffeine, which is a bummer. I cut my cup of coffee to half to a quarter. And then this week I'm starting on decaf because, when you don't have caffeine, you get that lovely caffeine headache, but you can't take any kind of aspirin or ibuprofen or anything like a week to 10 days before you have the balloon placement. So if I have a headache, I gotta just deal with it. Granted, I didn't ask them about it because I don't have regular headaches, so I didn't worry too much about it. I would just power through. But the goal is to make your stomach keep, not the stomach, but the balloon, make the balloon not have as much access to those things that are super acidic. I know stomach acid is acidic, but raising it even more than you normally would be. So I plan on doing a video the day of, and then probably a few days in. I know that other YouTube videos I've watched, it's been helpful to know how people are doing those first few days afterwards, and then probably weekly video. So thank you for watching, and I hope that my adventure and my process through this helps you make a decision too.